The campaign to limit abortion rights in America is getting big pushback across the country.
Show us what democracy looks like. Show us what democracy.
Abortion rights activists held more than 400 demonstrations yesterday around the country to support the Roe versus Wade ruling that established a right to abortion. Protesters rallied here in New York City, St. Paul, Minnesota, Portland, Maine, and Austin, Texas, to name a few. Several Democratic candidates for president also appeared at a rally outside the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C.
At the same time, 2 Hollywood projects cut ties with Georgia over the state's so-called heartbeat bill that was signed into law this month. Director Reed Morano confirmed on Instagram that her upcoming show, The Power, will no longer consider filming in Georgia. And reports say the Kristen Wiig comedy Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar is pulling production from the state. Georgia, of course, is one of at least 8 states to approve abortion restrictions this year. House Republicans hope the measure will lead to a Supreme Court challenge that could overturn Roe versus Wade. CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman is here. Rikki, good morning.
Good morning.
Exactly the person I want to talk to this morning on this issue. Now, a woman's right to an abortion is guaranteed under a decision from 1973, Roe versus Wade. The long-term prospects for that are in doubt, and that's in part because of the history and how that decision was made. Could you walk us through that?
Yes, and I do think that the future of Roe may well be in doubt, but we have to remember how it all began. Roe versus Wade stands for the proposition that under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, that women have the right to have control over their reproductive health, meaning that they can choose to terminate a pregnancy. That right did not come out of whole cloth, as people would like to say it did.
Women were dying. Women were dying.
Women were dying, and women were using self-help, knitting needles, hangers, back alleys, botched abortions. The movement afoot after Griswold versus Connecticut, which is in 1965, which starts to create this right of privacy for people, and it is extended in Roe to individuals being females about their own bodies without government interference, really was started because of the women's liberation movement, but also by gynecologists who came to the aid of seeing these botched abortions. And we find that all the statistics are really unreliable because we don't know how much illegal activity happened. But the statistic most people cite is 17%. That's 17 out of 100 women who had an abortion were dying.
Have there been challenges, Rikki, since Roe v. Wade was passed? Have there been challenges to the Supreme Court decision since then?
Yes, and fairly constantly, because once Roe was passed in 1973, there was great activism on both sides. And when you have the people who are against abortion, that what they did was very smart, both short-term and long-term. What they did was they looked for laws to be passed by state legislatures that would put restrictions on abortion, and they also looked to create court cases that would go up. So over time, some of these court cases have appeared before the United States Supreme Court, and some restrictions have been upheld. And where we get to the time that people thought Roe would be overturned, and there was great fervor about it and great fear, was in 1992 when we had the Casey case against Planned Parenthood. And at that point, the Supreme Court said, okay, that women do have rights to their own reproductive health, and that the state cannot put a substantial burden on those rights.
Our CBS poll earlier today, Rikki, showed that 2 out of 3 Americans do not want this overturned. Will that make a difference in the legal fight?
Well, theoretically, it should not, because popular will should never be what causes the Supreme Court to do what it's supposed to do.
But you said theoretically, yeah.
However, what we have to look at, and I think the example that people can understand, is Brown versus Board of Education. You had years of separate but equal, and suddenly you didn't. So here, you have years of chipping away at Roe, and what may happen in the future is if you chip away enough, there won't be much to overturn. It will be easier.
And precedents like this, even 50-year-old ones, they do get overturned at times.
Well, apparently they got overturned rather quickly, since Justice Breyer, around May 13th, said that he was very concerned about the abortion case because of a 50-year precedence that was tossed.
All right, Rikki.
Thank you, Rikki.
Everybody's watching. Thank you very much.